just tell me something about how you started in music? How young were you when you started playing the piano?
Well, I suppose I'd be about 4 or 5 years old. I know I could always play, really. I remember we lived in Birmingham in England when I was where I was born, and opposite to where we lived was a big building that used to have exhibitions. And I, as a little kid, used to run across the road and dodge underneath the turnstiles and get into these exhibitions. And they had one with a beautiful grand piano then. Of course, I immediately went and sat down and played. And before I knew where I was, there was an audience all round and they were giving me pennies. I went home with my pockets full of coins.
You came from a musical family too?
Oh, yes. My father was conductor of an orchestra there. And all my uncles were conductors or whatever, musicians anyway.
But you were self-taught. You didn't actually learn to read music or write music.
No, my father just told me which was A, B, C, D on the piano and then left me to find out the rest of it for myself.
And off you went. Now, when did you start your professional career as a musician?
I suppose it would be as a musician, but I was on the stage before that. But as a musician I started about when I was 19, I think. There was a friend of ours who were opening a skating rink, a roller skating rink, of course, in Blackpool. And it was the first one in the town, and I thought, well, they'll sure to want some music. So as I approached them, they said, oh, yes, we want a little band. So I got a little band together, and that was the start of it.
Now, how did you get together with Ada Reeves?
Well, I was conducting pantomimes at the time on tour. And Ada Reeves came to the Blackpool Palace, and somehow or other she mentioned to the manager that she was looking for a conductor to be with her always, because she was very difficult to follow. And he happened to mention my name as a young rising conductor, and so they got in touch with me, and I went down and gave an interview with her, and at Brighton in England. I went to the hotel and they were having dinner. That's she and her husband. The husband came out to interview me. And of course she told me all this afterwards. And when he got back he said, my God, he's only a boy. Because I looked very young for my age. Because I was turned 20, I was about 22 or 23 then.
Well, you still do look young for your age. But what was Ada Reeves like to work with?
Very difficult. You had to know every syllable, every word of her songs. So that's why she couldn't go with the, usual local conductor. It was very difficult for her. And so I had to sort of learn her songs with her, And we got on wonderfully well.
What did you think of her as an artist?
Terrific. One of the best, one of the finest. Oh, she was a wonderful artist.
And then you toured with her during the First World War. Can you tell us something about that?
Yes, we went all over England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, all over. And then finally we came out to Australia, and that's where we were when World War I broke out. After the tour we went back to England, and I joined the army there, but fortunately they let me off. When we came out again, she brought her company, and we went to Egypt, performed for the soldiers in the desert, on the hospitals, and then went on to India. My wife was also in the company as a little dancer, a little girl dancer. And we weren't married then, I might say. And then we went to India, then we came back to Australia, New Zealand, and from then back to Australia, then on to South Africa. And we were in Johannesburg when the armistice was signed. And after that we went back to England, did some more touring, and we came back again to Australia. Just after the First World War we came back again.
What was it like, say, when you went to Egypt and performed for the soldiers there? What sort of show did you put on for them?
Oh, well, usual sort of more or less a variety show. You see, I'd play the piano for the artists, different artists, let's say. We went to, in Alexandria, we went to the Jardin Rosette, an enormous building. There were about 3,000 soldiers in it. Terrific. Oh, we had a great time.
And then you settled here. What sort of things did you do then once you'd settled in Australia?
Well, the first thing I think I did was they wanted me at the Tivoli. And I went to the Tivoli for a while. And then Lee White and Clay Smith came out. I don't know whether you know them at all. She was a great artist. And I went on tour with them as their conductor. And I came back, went to the Tivoli again. Then afterwards, a little while, I was at the Princess Theatre with Hugh J. Ward. And then J.C. Williamson's got hold of me. And I was with J.C. Williamson for 3 years. I did Gilbert and Sullivan operas and all their musical comedies and pantomimes and things like that. This was at Majesty Theatre with J.C. Williamson. I was doing the Gilbert and Sullivan operas. Anyway, we were playing the Pirates of Penzance one night. And we got to the finale of the first act when all the lights went out. There was a power failure. And the orchestra kept going. They screwed their noses to the music and they kept going. And the artists on the stage kept going. And we finished the finale out and the audience rose to their feet and applauded and we had to repeat it in the dark. I'll never forget that. Their noses to the score. And then back to the Tivoli again. And during that time the Palais opened and I went there and there I was. First of all, of course, there were the silent pictures. We always played a little stage presentation. Then we'd go down in the pit and play for the silent pictures. I used to put all the score of music together for the pictures, as you mentioned in there. And then when the talkies came in, all we did was play an overture in the pit. Then the newsreel would come on, and we'd go onto the stage and do a big stage presentation. We did some wonderful shows there. We even had a circus on the stage at one time, complete with animals, horses and acrobats and all the rest of it. Wonderful. Another time, we did a show called Noah's Ark. I did all the music, and Harold Machete did all the lyrics of it. And we had Noah and his 3 sons, and a great big ark, of course, on the back. And then all the animals came out, cardboard animals, all 2 by 2. They gradually got larger and larger until at the end, couple of real live elephants came on, and then they did their stuff like they do in the circus,
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
And you as the conductor and all of the band were also in costume too?
Oh, sometimes. If we go on the stage, we'd be sometimes we'd be Chinese, other times we'd be all Dutch. We had a Dutch scene and all military uniforms and all sorts of things. Usually, Christmas time, we do a very special Christmas show. We run for 2 weeks. One time we had the Sundowners Quartet, and they came on in an old coach and horses on the stage, like an inn. Beautiful set, a real coach and real horses. Children's matinee we used to do. We used to play music, or overture or something, and then I used to play nursery rhymes and put the words up on the screen, and the children used to all join in and sing a chorus or something, They used to have a marvellous time. They used to come and bring me little presents, a little bottle of scent or something. One child gave me a penny, and another child, I remember, came down and gave me half a jam tart.
Now, you also had a women's orchestra going during the war when all the men were away. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, that was during the Second World War when lost most of the men had to go. And so I thought, well, the only thing to do now is to see if we can get a ladies' orchestra together, which I did. And they were very, very good too, splendid. They gave a wonderful, and they were there right up till the finish.
How did you find women musicians then?
Well, I had, of course, there's always violinists and pianists and cellos and flute, and clarinets, saxophones. I had trumpet players, I had a trombone player, I had a lady drummer, a harpist. They were all very, very good indeed. We used to have some amusing experiences. The ladies, they were very good. They either used to leave me to get divorced or married or have babies or something like that. Anyway, one funny incident, I had a lady double bass player, an elderly lady she was, very charming. And one day at rehearsal, I had occasion to just rehearse the woodwind only, so I gave the strings a rest. And when I called the whole ensemble together, the dear old lady bass player was shelling peas.
She didn't want to waste her time. Now, during that time, you were also composing music yourself. What sort of things were you composing?
Oh, I've written lots of songs and waltzes and things like that. I've had several songs published, but nothing very serious. Going back in the early days, I did a show at the Palace Theatre in Burke Street called Spangles with Ada Reeve. It had the longest run of any show up to that time, and I wrote several numbers for that.
And what about Gladys Moncrief? You worked with her too.
Yes, well, during the Palais days, Mr. Thring asked me if I'd play over some music for him of Collett's Inn. And my orchestra at the Palais, we played all this music for Mr. Thring. He was very pleased with it. And so when it came to the production, he got permission for me to go to the Princess Theatre and conduct the show, which of course included Gladys Moncrief was the star, George Wallace. I can't think of the other people's names, but it was a very good show, and I conducted the first week of it. I did films with George Wallace, and with Pat Hannard I did films, and I did the music, I composed the music, for Charles Chevel's film called Heritage, which at that time won the prize. There was a prize on anyway. That got the first prize for it, and I believe it's still going.
What would you say would be the greatest thrill in all of your career for you?
I suppose my wedding day.
But in terms of your career and your performance?
Yes, I conducted for Ada Reeve at the London Coliseum several times, and then at one time I got away and I used to play parts on the stage occasionally, and I got into a show at the Alhambra, Leicester Square. Ada was she was the star, and they gave me a small part to play in the theatre, in the stage, and I had to conduct a chorus off stage, you see, sort of thing. Anyway, Ada Reeve dropped out of the show. It wasn't her forte at all, really. And then she went across to the Coliseum to do her variety show, and I said, well, I'd go over and help the local conductor to conduct for her. And I went and stood behind him and told him lots of little things. And anyway, after the rehearsal, she sat in the front with Sir Oswald Stoll, who owned the theatre, and said she could not possibly go on with that conductor. She said, unless Harry can conduct for me, I can't appear. So as I was on at the Alhambra at Leicester Square, I said to Sir Oswald, well, if they let me off the finale of the first act, I can come across to the Coliseum and conduct. So that was arranged. Well, I went across to the Coliseum, and then when I walked into the orchestra pit to conduct for Ada Reeve, the orchestra, of course, knew me, and they were so pleased to see me that they gave me a round of applause. The whole orchestra at the Coliseum, there were about 40 of them, you know, and it was the biggest thrill I ever had in my life.